Welcome to Golf Smarter Mulligans number 70. I'm Fred Green. This episode was originally recorded in December of 2008 and refers to a TV golf event that happened that month. I wouldn't usually include an episode like this in Mulligans, but our guest is so colorful and so entertaining, and someone you're probably familiar with if you followed professional golf in the 80s, 90s, and beyond, so I couldn't resist. Enjoy. You may not be familiar with the name Mike Cowan, but if you've watched professional golf over the last few decades, you'll know the mustache attached to the character, also known as Fluff. Welcome to Golf Smarter, Fluff.
Oh, thank you. Nice to be on with you, Fred.
Well, good. You know, the ADT Skills Challenge is something, you've been involved with this before, but never as a player, correct?
That is correct. I got to go with my former boss, Peter Jacobsen, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. And so I was familiar with the format, and it's a fun time. And to be involved in a different capacity was an unbelievable amount of fun for me.
Oh, that's great. And so now you're teaming up with Peter Jacobsen, where before you were caddying for him, right?
That is correct.
And so what's the biggest difference for you in partnering with a PGA professional as opposed to carrying for him?
Well, the biggest difference is I had to hit shots.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I said the biggest difference was I had to hit shots.
Oh, you got to hit the shots.
It's one thing. From the caddy side of the bag, all the shots seem fairly easy. And all of a sudden, they weren't nearly as easy as it seemed to me when I didn't have to hit them.
But this is different. You're not playing 18 holes of golf. This is a skills challenge.
That's right. It's not golf, trying to make a sport. It's golf executing specialty shots. And you've got three shots at each skill, and it's kind of nerve-wracking, to know that you got 3 chances to do something with it. Unfortunately, I didn't actually perform very well today, but I still had fun.
Are you sensing the pressure that sometimes is felt out on the tour?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I actually was the first one to hit the long drive tee ball, which I knew I wasn't going to be much of a threat in, but I still was standing there thinking, boy, I don't want to top this one or, duck hook it or do something silly with it. But I actually managed to hit a relatively good drive. It's a shame that the long drive wasn't a consistency test because I hit it 243 every time. that was my long drive of the day, 243.
Is that embarrassing for you, or is that respectable?
Well, it's semi-respectable. I'm 60 years old now, so I don't pretend to think I'm gonna hit it out there 280 anymore. There was a time in my life when I like to think I maybe hit it somewhere in that area, but that time has come and gone.
And who are you caddying for these days?
I'm working for Jim Furyk on a full-time basis. Been working for Jim for almost 10 years.
And being somebody who's the age of the players that's on the Champions Tour, what do you bring to the table as far as your experience? How does that help you being on the PGA Tour carrying a bag?
Well, experience certainly counts for something. I mean, I've been around in lots of different situations, I guess is a better word.
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced the thrill of winning and the disappointment of losing on the last hole.
Mm.
So there isn't a whole lot that can happen anymore that puts me out of my comfort level. And as a caddy, not playing the shots, there's no reason for me to there's no reason for me to feel any real nervousness or anything. It's pretty cut and dry what I do, to a degree, to a point. There's times when you have to know, when to say something and when it's better left unsaid. So, I don't know. I guess the experience part of it would help you knowing which way to go.
Yeah.
And hopefully you choose the correct way to approach whatever situation you're dealing with.
Yeah, but then it's out of your control, too. You can even make a recommendation, and they don't hit the ball the way you hoped they would, correct?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just the fact that, I've basically, attempted to well, it all starts with getting the correct yardage, which, again, is just a physical thing. And then judging the wind, which is somewhat subjective, hoping that you have the direction correct and everything. But after you've factored all those things in, if he mishits the shot, all that goes right out the window.
Right. Does the wind have as much impact when it's in your face as it does when it's at your back?
Well, yeah, the wind is the wind. The only possible difference there, I guess, would be if you're hitting a shot into the wind, you have to hit it quite crisp and slide it through the wind to get the ball to go the distance that you're hoping it goes. If it's downwind, you can mishit it a little bit more, and as long as you do get it up in the air, it shouldn't affect the difference that much.
It shouldn't when it's at your back, huh?
It shouldn't be quite as much of a factor, because if let's say you hit it solid, but you hit it too more up in the air than you're intending to, well, the wind's going to knock that right down, and it's not going to go the distance you're hoping it to go.
Right.
So.
Right. You had mentioned at one point where you said sometimes you just have to know when to hold back as far as what you're going to say. Have you had any experience where you've advised a player on a shot and they didn't take your recommendation and you ended up being right?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
Is that something you want to block out of your mind?
Well, no, not necessarily block out, but there's nothing specific that I can recall.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I've been blessed with working for really good players pretty much my whole career. Guys that kind of know what they want to do, and they're asking my opinion when they already have a pretty good idea of what they want to do. Like, if Jim is feeling like he wants to hit a 7-iron, and I think it's a 6-iron, for example, and he says, "What are you thinking?" And I say 6, and he says, "Well, I think I can get 7 there. It's time for me to just get out of his way." And the guy with the hands on the club is the guy who really has to make the final decision and make the commitment to it.
Is it a partnership out on the golf course, or are you a coach? What is the role of a coach?
I'm not a coach. That's far from what I am. I'm nowhere near a coach. He has a coach, and his father actually is Jim's teacher. I'm not there to coach him. I'm there to give him the input and information that he needs to determine what shot he wants to hit.
So beyond carrying the bag, it's really just yardage situation for you.
Well, yardage and knowing the golf course, knowing, how would I put this?
The tendencies of the roll and.
Well, if there's trouble on, the last thing you want to do is hit too much club. And trouble's short. The last thing you want to do is hit too little club. So it's a matter of knowing the best place for it to end up if it's missed. Having a handle on the wind and having a handle on the situation, especially if you're coming down the stretch trying to win.
Are you a competitive person by nature?
Yes.
Do you have a fiery competitive streak in you?
I would say probably yes to that as well, yeah.
And does that come out in your caddying or in your playing?
Well, it probably comes out in both, although it's a lot less important in my playing. My playing is recreational anymore. But, I'm there to compete and try to win. The whole reason that we do what we do, both as a player and a caddy, is looking to win. That's what the thrill of what we do is. Right.
Did you have aspirations of being a tour player yourself?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe at a much younger time in my life, I did. Yes, it never amounted to anything.
And how did you get to where you are now? How did you end up going to be on a caddy side and end up on the tour caddying for some very impressive players?
Well, the way I became a caddy, I was working as a golf pro at a club back near where I grew up in Maine, and in the middle of the summer I got fired. A friend of mine that I had grown up playing golf with had just gotten back from California, kind of out there living the hippie life, and we were both unemployed. We just looked at each other and said, let's go on tour and see if we can hook up being a caddy. And we did. I've been doing it ever since.
And where were you living the hippie life in California?
Oh, there in the San Francisco area. I wasn't. He was.
Oh, that's where I'm calling. That's where you're calling me to right now.
Yeah, I knew that. I know the 415 area.
There you go. Yeah, we're still living it out here.
No, I know.
You're welcome to join us anytime, Fluff.
Well, that'd be a great thing. Except I have a family that I'm trying to support, so there's no time for California.
Yeah. So you just decided let's try to hook up and caddy on the tour. Could that happen today? I mean, the amount of competition there's got to be just to caddy has got to be ferocious. Would it be just as easy to become a professional tour caddy today?
Nowhere near.
Really?
No. In fact, it's. I wouldn't say it's impossible, because nothing is really impossible. But it would not be nearly as easy as it was when I started back in '76. And when I started, there were actually more players than there were caddies, so you could just about always find a job every week, and until you find somebody that you gelled with and would go on to a full-time basis with them. The ratio has completely flipped to where there are more caddies than there are players. I know guys that have caddied for years that end up losing a job, getting fired for whatever reason, and they have an awful time finding a new bag, a new player to work for. So no, for someone to do what I did in '76 is very difficult anymore, is how I would phrase it.
Well, I would love for you to take us on the adventure that you went through to become a caddy back in '76. Once you decided, let's go see if we can hook up on the tour and become a caddy. Tell me what happened, how that worked, and how you succeeded, and did your friend succeed as well?
My friend did not stick it out long enough to succeed. Well, we started in kind of late summer of '76. The first place we ever worked was it was back in the days of Monday qualifying, and we worked a qualifier for the Greater Hartford Open. Actually, neither guy that we worked for there made it into the tournament. and we didn't even have the savvy to go to the venue, the tournament site itself, which at the time was Weathersfield Country Club. We didn't know to go there and look for somebody who was already in the tournament and see if we could get a job for the week. We just figured these guys missed, and that was it. So that's how green we were. But then actually the next tournament we worked was the Buick Open in Flint, Michigan. At the time, it was a second-tier event opposite the World Series of Golf, which is in Akron, Ohio. And the guys that we had Monday qualified, or failed to Monday qualify at the GHO, asked us if we were going to go to the next event, and we kind of said, yeah. We said, yeah, we are. And and so we worked that tournament. Everybody, all the guys, there was no Monday qualifying for that event. Everybody got into it. And so we went there and worked, and the next event we went to was in Vegas, and we just worked the parking lot until we found a player who was in need of a caddy. We both found jobs there.
Wait, I'm going to stop you on that. What do you mean you worked the parking lot?
Well, that's where you found jobs.
Really? You just hustled in the parking lot? Hey, you need a caddy? That kind of thing?
That's it. Exactly.
So that wouldn't happen today.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The approach, the way we went about doing it then, the amount of guys that find jobs out of a parking lot on a Tuesday morning at a PGA Tour event in this day and age,
no.
It's very small.
Yeah.
I won't put a number on it. I'll just say it's very small.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's how I started. And I actually worked for a different guy every week of that first roughly 4 months. And it was the last tournament of the year. I worked for a guy by the name of Ed Sabo at the last tournament of that year. And Eddie was actually the first guy that ever asked me what I was doing, after the week was over. I mean, every week prior to that, the week would end, I'd get paid, say thanks, and that would be the end of that week, and I would go to the next site, and I'd be in the parking lot again looking for a job. And it was the last tournament of the year that I worked for Ed, and he said to me, are you planning on going to the West Coast next year? I said, yeah, I guess so. And he said, would you like to go to work for me full time? And I thought, wow, full time. Geez, that's a kind of a novel idea.
A job?
Sure, was my answer. And so I worked all of 77 and the beginning of 78 for Eddie. When it became, Peter Jacobsen was my next full-time job, and how that came about was the guy that had been working for Peter decided he'd had enough of that kind of life and was going back to Oregon. And so there Jake was without a caddy, and I decided it was time for me to try to make a move, and so I approached Peter and said, I see that you don't have a caddy on your bag. Could I go to work for you? And his answer was, well, we'll give it a try. And that try lasted about 18 years.
Oh, man. And you had some great success with Peter, didn't you?
Yeah, we surely did. Yeah. Jake's one of the greatest guys I've ever known. He's pretty much, I've been blessed with having a lot of friends throughout my life, but I'd have to say that Peter Jacobsen is probably the best friend I've ever had.
Oh, that's very nice.
And, we had a great time together. We did a lot of fun things, and we shared a lot of the same interests. We both love music, and both love the game of golf, and the chemistry was there for a long, long time.
Yeah, I think for a couple of guys, if you can share those two things, you can hang out for quite a while and have a great time. And plus the fact that you're traveling all over the world, right?
Yeah. I tell people that what I do, first of all, I love what I do. And again, I feel blessed to be making a living doing something that I absolutely love. And it beats the heck out of working.
You call that work, huh? You don't want to call that work. So let's talk about Peter's career, that you worked together, and what it meant to your career.
Well, Peter had a very solid career. He probably should have won quite a few more times than he actually did. But all at the same time, you can't necessarily judge a person's career in just wins or money made. His wealth is in all the people that he's known over the years and become great friends with, and I was lucky to be around a lot of that. For example, the musicians that I've met and gotten to know over the years because of being around Peter is you can't put a monetary value on that.
Go ahead and drop some names. Come on.
Drop some names.
Yeah, like who?
Oh, well, I'll start out there in the Bay Area with Huey.
He loves his golf. Huey Lewis, huh?
Yeah, and the guys in his band, Johnny Cola and I'm going blank here.
Yeah, well, they're a Marin County band.
Yeah,
that's where I'm from. Yeah.
Two guys that I think are absolutely historic in the world of music is Duck Dunn and Steve Cropper.
Oh my gosh, sure. A lot of people would recognize them from the Blues Brothers movie.
Yeah, and before that, you go back to Booker T.
Yep.
And you go back to Stax Records, and they were the
mainstays
for a lot of music that was made in Memphis.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Bruce Hornsby is a friend of mine.
So Peter is actually a great ambassador to the game as well as being a successful player, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. His involvement in all aspects of the game of golf is you can't measure it hardly.
Yeah. And so after you worked with Peter for 18 years, is that when you hooked up with Tiger?
Yep. It was in the 96 PGA Championship. Peter had been battling back problems for a few years, and at that PGA Championship, things had gotten really bad to the point where he was having pain down his leg and couldn't hardly walk, and he ended up withdrawing from that tournament midway through Friday's round. And he was going home, and his comment to me was, I'm going home, and I don't know when I'm going to play again. I'm not going to play again until I'm feeling a lot more healthy than I feel now. So I basically said, okay, and I decided that I was going to go home and lay up as long as I could and wait it out, and hopefully, it wouldn't turn into a really long time, or else I would have had to have done something else.
Yeah.
And in the time that was happening, that's when Tiger was turning pro. And through the grapevine, sort of, through Peter and also Bush Harmon, who was Tiger's instructor at the time, it was kind of decided without any real input from me that Tiger needed somebody to work with him over the next 6 or 7 events that he was going to, get into as a non-card carrying rookie to try to earn enough money to get his card. And I got a phone call. Said, "What you doing?" And I said, "I ain't doing anything." And he said, "Can you work for me for the next 6 or 7 weeks?" And I said, "Well, I can work for you as many as possible, depending on when Peter is able to play again." And so that's how that started.
Wow. So it wasn't, you didn't have to go back to the parking lot and try to find somebody to caddy for.
No, it was done with a phone call.
Amazing. So the first time that you got to carry his bag, you walk out there and this tall kid who steps onto the scene, I guess you had heard of him before because it wasn't as if he was an unknown before he went pro.
Well, I actually had met Tiger. I'd met Tiger twice before that. Once when he was like a 14 or 15-year-old kid at Riviera down in L.A., and the other time, which was more meaningful and what am I trying to say here? Around him enough that I got to know him a little bit. We were actually paired with him, Peter and I. Peter was paired with him at the '95 British Open at St. Andrews on Thursday and Friday, and so I had been around him, for 2 rounds of golf and got to know him a little bit. So yes, I knew who Tiger was and knew him some.
And what were your initial thoughts when you saw this kid play?
Oh, basically stuff I'd never seen before.
Really? And you'd been on the tour now you'd been on the tour for almost 20 years at that point.
Yeah, pretty much 20 years, yes.
And this kid was he was displaying golf techniques that you just had not witnessed.
Hitting shots that I couldn't hardly believe, yes.
So how do you caddy for someone like that? Well, how do you recommend anything?
No, you just learn. You just learn how far he hits it, and you just learn. I don't know how to say it any other way. Yeah.
And so he was really the I guess the beginning of a new generation of young golfers to come out to play professionally. And now it seems to be there's a lot of young players who are coming out both in the PGA and the LPGA that are making it onto the tour.
Yeah, that's very true.
And you've had more experience with that? Have you worked with other?
Understand you.
Well, have you? I'm sorry. Have you worked with other young players?
Well, no. Well, the only other young, really, I guess there's one, but I only worked one event for her, so I don't have really, there's no real foundation. I worked for Michelle Wee 1 week in 2004 when Jim had wrist surgery, and I was kind of just doing what I could do to keep working a little bit during his downtime. And one of those weeks that I filled it in with was a week with Michelle. She was quite phenomenal. I think she was. I don't know if she was. I can't remember if she was 14 or 15 at the time.
Wow.
So that was quite an experience for me.
How so?
Well, she's just she's kind of a female version of Tiger Woods. Although she's gone through an awful struggle time here, but at that time, she was the next phenom. I mean, I'm not sure that's necessarily over. I think Michelle is going to find her way and become a great player myself. That's my personal opinion.
Are you saying that, clearly the guys who succeed in the tour, and we're not even going to talk about Tiger here, but, there's a maturity that comes with succeeding in professional golf. There seems to be, I guess the word maturity kind of fits here, that now with all these young players coming up that have raw talent, but do they necessarily have the right composure, attitude, mental game that is required to succeed at that level?
Well, yeah, I believe they do, and I believe that a large basis for that is both college golf and guys that have had a great amount of success on mini tours before they ever get to the tour. I guess mainly college golf. Let me try to put this in a way that maybe makes some sense. in the early days of my caddying career, there seemed to be a process that went on with younger players who came out on tour. The first thing they did, well, after getting their playing privileges, the next step after that was learning how to make cuts. And that's what they came out kind of sort of trying to do, just getting comfortable making cuts. And then after they get making a fair amount of cuts and getting in the hunt trying to win tournaments, they would experience being in the hunt and what that did to you mentally. And then after they'd been in the hunt a bunch of times, they'd get more comfortable with that, and then bingo, they would get their first win and be on their way. You know, I don't know what time frame I'm trying to put this in. Let's say it's as much as 5 years. Might not be that long, but it's something like that. Well, the young guys that are coming out on tour now are coming out, and they are fully expecting to win now. And their approach to being on the tour is just that. They're coming out, they're aggressive, they're not worrying about making cuts. They're coming out with the intent of becoming a winner during their rookie year. And that's kind of what I view as the biggest difference.
Interesting. And if you were able to give some advice to a young player coming up on what they should be focused on as far as trying to succeed in the tour, what would be a single thing that you would tell them? I mean, they all got game, right? But what is it that you would tell them to focus on to get to that level?
Short game.
That easy.
That easy.
Awesome. Hey, Fluff, it's been a real joy talking to you. I appreciate it. Best of luck at the Skills Challenge, and we'll be seeing it on NBC right around December time, right? Yeah,
December. I believe it's the 28th and the 29th.
All right. Well, we'll be rooting for you.
Don't expect to see a lot of me, Fred, because I didn't hit enough good shots.
Well, we'll be rooting for you anyway. You're going to be our favorite player out there.
All right.
Fluff, it's been a joy. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one out there in the, I can't say it. Have a good time.
Okay, so he wanted to make a derogatory remark about San Francisco, but caught himself. And that's who he is.